Good morning and welcome to Health Cities Talks. This fall, we are kicking off a new series entitled Companies Growing Companies. As Alberta companies scale, they often look to other centers in Canada or even south of the border for assistance with prototyping, manufacturing, marketing, and sales. What we don't realize is that we have many of those capabilities right here in our own backyard. This series will begin by highlighting three such companies. First is Flawless Inbound, represented by Saher Ghattas, CEO. Secondly is Andow Medical, and founder and CEO Sandi Wright is with us. And finally is Tangent Design Engineering, and Josh Abbott is a partner. Let's start with some introductions. Would you each kindly introduce yourselves, your origin story of your company, where you're at now, and what services you offer? Saher, let's start with you.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for me being part of this program. I really appreciate it. My name is Saher Ghattas, founder and CEO of Flawless Inbound. We started here in the backyard of Edmonton, Alberta, two co-founders in February 2014. And now we are a team of 25 members full-time. We have representation in Alberta, British Columbia, Ontario, Atlanta, Georgia, Vienna, Austria, and now discussing some remote teams in India and Manila as well. We just it was kind of a great journey. We learned from it, and we're, again, trying to learn and grow as much as we can. The service we offer is kind of helping tech startup companies in general kind of understand what kind of software, virtual tools that can help them grow and expand, because that's exactly what we pass through in our process.
Excellent, great, thank you. And Josh, let's go to you.
Thanks, Reg. A pleasure to be here. I'm Josh Abbott with Tangent Design Engineering. We've been in business in Calgary for 16 years, and we were founded on the idea of providing diversified technology product solutions for customers. So not oil and gas focused, and we've been excited to see many different sectors in Alberta, including the biomed and life sciences space, do really well in recent years. We started as a small team. We're now up to over 30 engineers. And creating new technologies and new products isn't easy. It's something we love to do. And that's our focus for customers, is to really help them identify the right technology and the right product for them to serve the market.
Wonderful. Thanks, Josh. And Sandi, over to you.
Thanks so much, Reg. Thanks for having us. So I'm Sandi Wright, CEO and founder of Andow Medical, and we're a local Edmonton-based company, and we were founded just a little over a year ago now. And within that year, we've been able to take many new products to market. We specialize in sales, marketing, and distribution for medical and dental devices. And both myself and some of the folks that work on our team, we've had decades of experience working for big global multinationals, getting new devices to market. And we did see a need in the Alberta marketplace to have that type of capability and skill and apply it to companies that wouldn't necessarily have the access to that type of expertise. So we're very excited to be part of the Alberta ecosystem and to help local innovators get their products out to market. Both in Canada as well as across the United States. So we have about 50 sales representatives that work for us, as well as a full marketing team, quality regulatory team, and we're able to quickly and efficiently get products out to market.
That's wonderful. Seeing as you have the mic, Sandi, I'm going to ask you a question. So you all have experience providing companies with guidance in different areas. What are some of the key requirements that entrepreneurs often overlook when kicking off their venture?
So that's a really great question. I think, in terms of key requirements, one thing that I would encourage companies to think about is, they might think they've got a fantastic product and, everybody's passionate about whatever it is that they're doing, and their baby is never ugly. But, it's very important to get early market feedback. So before you go through the hassle of prototyping or, even spending money on engineering design, sorry, Josh, it's really important to actually make sure that you've got a viable market. And, the bigger the pain point that your product is going to meet, the greater the value in what it is that you're doing. So a needs assessment in the market with some unbiased folks, not just in your current backyard, in your geography, but in other geographies. Getting a wide array of input is really critical to making sure that you're on the right path.
Perfect. Now, Josh, I know you've seen a lot of companies that are facing these challenges. So what advice do you have?
Yeah, and I have to agree with Sandi. You know, as much as we love getting into the details of technology development and product design, market is very important, and please don't let your engineers tell you what they think the market needs, because I, for one, I'm the wrong guy to tell you that kind of thing. But you know, we can work with your marketing team to help give you the assets you need to help test out the market, whether it's quick renderings or looks like prototypes. You know, quite easily you can get these assets that can help you answer some key questions about whether you're on the right track in the marketplace. And then once you've gotten that traction, as you know, as Sandi kind of pointed to, then we can get into more detailed work where we're trying to prove out the technology or find the right technology for you to execute on that product vision. And there's many ways of doing that. As I said, there's looks like prototypes. There's also, you know, works like prototypes that are focused on the functional aspects of the product, and that's often a key place to start as well, where you're really focused on the difficult challenges that your product needs to meet. For example, if you've got a wireless device, but you're doing something, you're sensing something, the wireless connectivity is something that is easy to do, but if you can't sense what you're trying to measure properly, then your product isn't going to be successful. So focus on, for example, the sensing element first, as opposed to the stuff that might be more easier, like the wireless transmission, as an example.
Perfect. Saher, over to you. What advice do you have?
I think one of the key advice that we gave ourselves when we were starting 7 years ago, and also for a lot of our clients, is making sure you have the right foundation, technical foundation, virtual tools, because we all know now this is the new world we're going to live in, which is post-COVID. So how can you tell your story better, especially if you're planning to launch outside of Alberta, outside of Edmonton? And how can you launch it nationally in Canada or in the US or maybe international? We all know trade shows maybe are coming back, but not in the same style. You might need a CRM solution. You might need maybe a website, but not the traditional way of building websites. You might need a marketing tool, maybe a financial tool that kind of wrap everything around your process. So make sure that also you're planning properly the right virtual tool that help you and your team scale day one, because I'm sure if we're in the startup phase right now, we don't have budget for more headcounts. So how can we use technology to help us scale and still do more with less and be more productive in what you do day in and day out?
So all of you have experience in pretty focused areas. And so I'm going to tap into a little bit of that experience here on this call. Saher, you have the mic. So you mentioned virtual tools a little bit. So tell us a little bit more about that. How is your company, and how do you help other companies use virtual tools? In what way? And how does it help these companies?
So I'll speak about Flawless and Bound. Actually, first of all, like we had almost 2 near-death experience when oil and gas kind of sector kind of was shaken in Alberta a little bit. That was maybe in a little bit of 2016, 2017 maybe. And then, of course, during COVID, we had to completely pivot and kind of disrupt ourselves and kind of think about new ways of how we can reach market. So the challenge we have seen for us or for other clients was maybe they're using traditional tools, a traditional CRM in one place. Maybe they just go in and build a website. They have their financial tool, and those tools are not speaking together at all. So what we were able to do is we're able to go out and find a virtual platform where you can have your CRM in one platform, your marketing automation in the same platform, and also the ability to host meetings and do follow-ups with your prospects and with your leads and tell them the right story during this virtual tool. So regardless if you have a physical networking event or a virtual event, there is actually a way to continuously tell the story to your prospects or maybe to your alpha or beta clients, especially if you're trying to position yourself for a larger organization in the US. So that's kind of just a quick summary of some of the things that we learned over the years of those tools and how to use them properly.
Perfect, thanks. Josh, when you were doing your introduction, you talked a little bit about prototyping. And I know that's a big area to get into, because once you start looking down the prototyping angle, you're actually starting to make investments now. And so give us some background on what we need to focus on when we're looking at developing our first prototype.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. For one, you want to be able to show the product vision, where you're going with your product, what the commercial version might look like. So renderings and looks like prototypes are a really good way of showing where you're going. And then on the technical side, you want to be creating fully functional prototypes that really measure out and define how well you're going to be able to deliver on what your market wants. So de-risking the core technology, learning about your core technology, refining it, continuing to make it better until you're at the stage where it's performing where it needs to perform. And you know, in today's day and age, with the supply chain disruptions that we've had, there's really it's a more complicated landscape than it has been before as bringing hardware products to market. You know, this topic of, do you control your design and can you get parts for your design is an interesting topic. And it's not something that you might want to focus on at the very, very early stages, but as you're transitioning towards commercialization, you want to make sure that you have the ability to produce your product in volumes that you need to produce it in. And just to highlight that, one example is, you know, if you've got say a display in your product where, you know, somebody's interfacing with, and it's a touch screen, for example, you could buy an off-the-shelf tablet and integrate that into your product, or you could design a display in your own custom circuit board with your own processor yourself, and it would be your own version of a display. Now, if you do your own, it's going to take more upfront costs and more development costs on the engineering side. But if you buy an off-the-shelf product from another manufacturer, if they change where the power port is on the product, or they change the processor and it now uses more battery, you know, you don't have control over that aspect of your product. So, you know, with product design, it's really managing those compromises and making smart decisions about what makes sense for your company, and what you know, what compromises are acceptable, because many people often go down the road of selecting components that are off the shelf and don't fully understand the consequences that might bring. And maybe it's the right decision, but it's always helpful to know what the pros and cons of all these decisions are. And so, you know, we can help people make smart decisions for their business that they're fully aware of going in, so they know what they're getting into.
Excellent. Sandi, you mentioned in your introduction, and we've heard it over and over again from anytime we go to any entrepreneur workshops or venture capital events, that the end customer is key. So, you know, sales, marketing, distribution, these are all key things that companies need. And you're proposing this idea of outsourcing all of that. So tell us a little bit more about, why would a company choose to outsource than build in, and what are some advantages in doing so?
Yeah, so, you know, certainly when you're looking at outsourcing key elements of your business, obviously you have to make a decision. You know, where are your strengths? What are you really good at? What do you want to focus on? And for a lot of companies, that's R&D, or it's, you know, the engineering aspects. There's other aspects that excite them about their business. But, you know, you have to understand your strengths and you have to understand your weaknesses. And so for many of these companies, you know, they really quickly understand that sales, marketing, and distribution are kind of, you know, challenges that they certainly don't have experience or expertise in. And yet for commercialization, it's the most important aspect in terms of scale and spread of a company's growth. When you're looking at outsourcing these types of services, there's so many advantages that they can really benefit from. And really, you know, when you look at even the systems that are required to sell into different markets. So, and this is something that we actually recently experienced, just as a little bit of a pain point that I'd love to share. So we started in Canada. We ended up, you know, with 15% market share on a product line within 3 months after launching. And so we thought, okay, we've got this. Let's go to the US. It's, you know, obviously the next big market, and we wanted to enter the market quickly. So we decided to, you know, go to market in June of this past year. When we went to go to market, we quickly realized that, you know, the taxes, for example, are a completely different system. not, every state, for example, has, 15, 20 different tax codes that need to be used. So the tax systems that are required are very different. The banking requirements are different. How you operationalize these things are very different. Regulatory to consider. So there's other companies that have pathways to get you to market. And, if you can scale and spread quickly and do so by aligning with a company that's already broken down all those barriers, it's going to be more advantageous for your company. So, always thinking about how you can spread and scale quickly, and what other companies have this expertise that you can really leverage. And that would be the best advice I could give.
Wonderful, thanks. So now I'm going to put you all a little bit on the spot. You've talked to us a little bit about your expertise. You provided some advice, and I think you all have something to offer our companies here in Alberta. So I'm going to ask you, why should they come to your company, and what kinds of services could they get from your company? So Josh, you can kick it off.
We can start anywhere from TRL1 through TRL9 from a technology readiness level perspective. So, once you've identified that market need, or you have an idea of what the market requires, we can help you flesh out that in more detail and provide you with the technology options to execute on that product vision. So that includes, prototyping that I mentioned earlier, as well as renderings, and then your plan to scale up from there. So haven't touched on it yet, but obviously creating a prototype is really great, and building a few of them is great. Once you have that market acceptance, and you're working with someone like Sandi, and you're getting this traction out and need to fulfill units, then the question is, how do I produce dozens or hundreds, or hopefully even more, in an efficient manner? So, those design for manufacturing steps, there's lots of options there too. There's working overseas, which has challenges. There's working locally in North America. So there's lots of key decisions there as well that need to be made. So we've got some supply chain options to help customers make good decisions on where they want to go. We've seen lots of challenges during the pandemic. Suppliers, believe it or not, overseas forging data sheets for materials and providing the wrong materials, and we're wondering why the product's not working. So there's lots of little challenges, but we've done this all before. We understand technology and how to create it, and to present you with the options that make the most sense for you to go down. And then once we made good decisions, the productization of that, making sure it's aesthetically pleasing, make sure the user wants to use it, making sure it obviously functions the key functions it needs to do, and then that plan, of course, to make many units in the network to do that. So we tell customers we're here as long as you need us, and we're happy to train up your staff as well if you want to insource certain things. It's a pretty easy working relationship with us, and we're just here to help people commercialize cool new technologies. That's what we want to do.
So Josh, I got a quick follow-up question for you, and it's about something you just mentioned around insourcing. So when you're advising companies, are there some key ways to look at how do you decide between insourcing and outsourcing, say when they're dealing with your company, for example?
Yeah, it depends. Some companies come to us with already having a CTO or technology strength in their company, and they need to augment, accelerate that vision that person has, and round them out. Maybe they're have a mechanical inclination and don't have electronics capabilities and that kind of thing. So we can kind of round out the existing technical team that you might have. Many of our customers choose not to focus on getting a technical team early on in the project, and they rely on our team to fulfill all technical capabilities. And the good news is that we're producing design artifacts throughout development that you own in full. So if you don't focus on creating your own team internally at the start, we can train up your team at a later date when you start bringing them on board, and show the history of the development and all the design details that have come out of it, so that they can quickly get up to speed on where things are at. So there's really no one-size-fits-all solution. It depends on the team that you have and what your priorities are. So we can either complement your team, or we can be your entire team.
That's wonderful, Josh. Thanks. Saher, over to you. 2 questions. So 1, why would somebody come to Flawless Inbound? And then more importantly, when would they come to you?
So I guess let's start the why first, that you feel now that maybe you're a couple of co-founders, you want to grow the team, you don't have budget yet to build like a big sales team or a marketing team or infrastructure. So what we do is we come in and we build a small virtual tool for you so that you can actually sell through distance. You can sell through a COVID situation. So we go in and build a CRM solution for you, a marketing automation platform, and then maybe in the same system, we can actually also build a financial model for you. Maybe you have a small inventory or a warehouse management platform, but you don't have the big budget to buy, let's say, an Oracle system or other things like that. So we went out in the market and we figured out small software platforms that can actually help you scale and can grow with your budget. So you don't need to invest upfront cost. The other reason of why is we help you also build the go-to-market strategy. We have a program called account-based marketing. It's mainly focused on technology companies and B2B organizations so that you can work with an internal or external team, but have truly a strategy on how can you attract those new alpha clients or beta clients that actually want to kind of test your solution platform. And usually we do that either through a small engagement or a consulting or maybe a big engagement as well, depending on your needs and how you're growing, how you want to grow the business faster, for sure.
So follow-on question for you, Saher. If companies coming to you and they don't have experience in these kinds of online systems, or they don't even know what a CRM is, and maybe you might want to define that for us, but if a company is coming to you, how much education do they need ahead of time, or can you help them with that?
Absolutely. I think first of all, we do a lot of online events, but I'm looking forward actually to having some of the team members who are listening to this recording to attend our workshops. So we have a workshop for 90 minutes where we go in and speak about how do you even choose a system and how would that match the size of your organization and how much would you budget for it so that there's no surprises and they can kind of figure out baby steps to get them from the startup phase to a grow-up phase, to a scale-up phase, to a mature organization.
Wonderful, thanks. Sandi, over to you. So you've talked about your immense success over the last year in terms of product lines that you've got into market. When should companies come to Andau, and what should they expect when they're looking for guidance from you?
So the earlier the better. We definitely want to have early engagement because the earlier we can inform the strategy, the better the go-to-market rollout will be. So what we do is we actually create strategic marketing plans as the first step, where we look at market sizing, we look at the competition, we do a competitive assessment and an analysis, we look at what needs the product is going to meet, willingness to pay, and what pathways to market and which markets would be best for early introduction. And then we look at a growth and a strategic scale-up model and how we can implement that growth over the course of the first 1 year, the first 3 years, and then 5 years. So the earlier we can engage with these companies, the better. What we then do is we take their plans, these strategic marketing plans, we translate that into a sales strategy. And that can look very different depending on the company, depending on the products, depending on the markets that we're serving. So what we like to do is we actually will take a product, we will resource our strategic sales plan around that product line. So we don't just take a product and put it into an existing representative's bag, for example. We actually build a sales team around the product line. And I think that's what really differentiates us from any other sales and marketing distribution company out there. So for us, we really are excited to engage at an early stage so we can also start to plan our resources around how we can collaborate best to get products out to market.
Wonderful. So I've got a follow-on question for you. So I know an academic group that has some really interesting technology, and I think they've got a product idea. Is that too early to come to you? And if they do come to you, how do you help them at that stage?
That's the ideal stage, Reg, for them to come to us. And what we'll do is we will actually help to work with them to define what the problem set is that they're solving. And maybe there's other indications for use for the product that they didn't even think about in the first place that actually might be a bigger problem to solve. So, when we're looking at working with these companies, it's not only to build out the sales and marketing side, but it's also to inform, does the product really fit with the market? And what else, what other verticals could they be targeting? What other procedures potentially could that product meet a real need that the market has? So the earlier the engagement, the better. And from there, we can help work with them. And, every company is going to look very different. Are they looking for in-house sales and marketing that we can then just help and support? Or are they looking for an outsourced solution, which of course we're happy to collaborate on as well. So, every company and every product line will be very unique. And that's part of the reason we love what we do.
Wonderful. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining me today. What we are going to do as part of this series is we're actually going to do a deep dive. So we're going to have an opportunity to meet each one of these companies in a workshop type format. Saher mentioned that. So each of these three, you'll have an opportunity to interact with live. So ask questions, bring concerns to the table, and you can have a conversation with either Sandi, Josh, or Saher independently. And we'll be having those coming out throughout the fall. Before we wrap up, are there any last words that any of you wanted to pop in there before we wind down?
One more thing we haven't talked about today, and it touches on the market side, is what's your minimum viable product? What's your MVP? And I think, in some cases, the startup company or the entrepreneur gets obviously very excited about their technology and might not know exactly what feature set their customers are interested in and want to pay for. So, as engineers, we can make it happen, but it's really making sure that you've understood your market well and what features that your market is interested in buying, and so that we can focus on those first and make sure that we execute on those well.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Josh said. Just make sure that you've got that market assessment, really start with the market need in mind.
We can always build the Cadillac later. We can always, you can always build a follow-on product after your first one's successful, right?
Maybe add something here is, as a startup company, we've been there before. So I think the main thing is just remember to breathe and remember to focus on one or two things that you have to do each 90 days. And if you do that well, eventually everything will come. So it's very important to nail down what do I need for the next 90 days? What's more critical for me to move the needle forward or just move this rock to the next level? And as soon as you figure this out, I think everything will clear out, and the whole team are here to always help you guys.
Wonderful, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm sure folks are pretty interested in having that deep dive workshop with each one of you that's coming out in the fall. So thanks very much. And we will talk with all of you soon.